Good afternoon, and welcome to Northeastern University and the 34th Annual John W. Webb Lecture. It's so good to see so many past Webb Lecture recipients, directors, residents, preceptors, students, and many friends of the university and the School of Pharmacy. The Webb Lecture recognizes the legacy of John W. Webb, Director of Pharmacy at the Massachusetts General Hospital from 1959 until 1983, and a long-term Director of the Masters in Hospital Pharmacy at Northeastern University. Mr. Webb was an innovative practitioner, educator, and a humble leader whose work at the MGH made him one of the most influential people of his time. The Webb Lecture Award was established in 1985 as the John W. Webb Visiting Professorship in Hospital Pharmacy by the Northeastern University College of Pharmacy and Allied Health Professions. Mr. William Gavea, former Director of Pharmacy at Tufts Medical Center, and Dr. Jerry Schumacher, former Dean of the College of Pharmacy at Northeastern, developed the award to recognize and sustain Mr. Webb's legacy. As Bill Gavea noted many years ago, Mr. Webb expertly mentored and guided the professional careers of his residents, students, and staff. Patience, consideration, and unending support were the hallmarks of his tutelage. Since the American Society of Health System Pharmacists began administering the selection process 12 years ago, each award recipient has delivered a presentation at the ASHP Conference for Pharmacy Leaders, this year held in Dallas just a couple of weeks ago, followed by a full-day program here at Northeastern University. Our relationship with ASHP is highly valued. I'm pleased to welcome Mr. David Chen, Senior Director, Section of Pharmacy Practice Managers at ASHP, to come forward and bring greetings from the Society. David?
Good evening and greetings. And Dean Reynolds, thank you for the kind introduction. It is with great pleasure and appreciation to be afforded time today to address you all this evening for this special year for the John W. Webb Lecture Award. ASHP, as mentioned by Dean Reynolds, has been in partnership with Northeastern since 2006 in the administration and selection of the John W. Webb Lecture Awardee. The partnership is very significant to ASHP and our continued commitment to recognizing exceptional leadership in pharmacy. We appreciate the opportunity to be part of Northeastern's celebrations of Patty's accomplishments. Patty, congratulations on being recognized for your many years of leadership within our profession. You truly demonstrate the characteristics embodied by the definition of the award and the 33 prior recipients with your many years of team leadership yielding innovations and patient safety improvements. Your continuous mentoring of practice leaders and dedication to inspiring pharmacy students and practitioners through your teaching, speaking, and publications. Great examples of these characteristics are embodied in your decades of volunteer leadership with PSHP and ASHP, as well as your immense influence with the Joint Commission and USP as a steadfast advocate for patient safety and a voice for practitioners in a continuous quest to improve pharmacy practice. The guidances and standards you have directly influenced have truly driven positive outcomes in healthcare across our nation. Your tireless availability to practitioners of all stages of their careers and your continuous dedication to teaching others through their hundreds of publications and presentations. Bill Gavea, in his Webb lecture titled Turbulence and Tranquility in a New Decade, Pharmacy Leader Managers in Patient Care, describes pharmacy's strategic rope that is made up of cultural, technological, and political strands, and the issues that needed effective leadership to keep the rope strong and to make it through the white waters facing healthcare. I found this message fitting when reflecting on Patty's selection as the 2018 John W. Webb recipient. The Bill Gavea's lecture referenced scenarios of the times, but the message still holds true today. Patty has committed a career to effecting positive, effective change and advocacy supporting these three rope strands described by Bill. Her consistent and constant participation and leadership has kept the pharmacy strategic rope strong, especially in these past few years as the turbulent white waters of continuous scrutiny and by the political and regulatory environment on pharmacy's preparation and and management of medications. So Patty, you've been a role model for pharmacy leaders for many years. Your sense of purpose, generosity of your knowledge, and influence on fostering excellence in pharmacy management is to truly be admired. I am very honored to have the opportunity to be part of the recognition and of your contributions to the pharmacy profession, and look forward to listening to your remarks this evening. Again, congratulations on behalf of ASHP.
Thank you, David. I'd also like to recognize some special guests with us tonight. We have Dr. Chris Fortier, Chief Pharmacy Officer at Mass General. Could you stand and be recognized, Chris? I know you're here. Thank you very much. Chris welcomed some of the past Webb Lecture recipients to the hospital today and gave them a tour and talked about John's legacy. Thanks, Chris. Some of our other special guests, we have some members of the Webb family here. So Bob Webb and his wife Susie and grandson Tom, who is a pharmacy student at UConn. Would you stand to be recognized? We're so glad to have you here. From MSHP, we have three guests, President Melissa Ortega, President-elect Nicole Clark, and immediate past President John Clark. And I know you're out there somewhere. Could you stand to be recognized? There we are. I'd also like to thank you and the Society for your co-sponsorship of the program tonight. Thank you very much. The John W. Webb Visiting Professor in Hospital Pharmacy has become a signature event for our School of Pharmacy, and I'm proud of the influence of the program and the long list of accomplished leaders who've been recognized by the school, ASHP, and the profession. Today, we are honored to have with us 4 past Webb Lecture awardees, and I'd like to recognize each one of them. Front row here, I think, yes. Mr. Bill Gavea received the award in 1989, and his wife Sharon are here with us tonight. And I want to acknowledge in a special way Bill's leadership and vision as the person who established this program some 34 years ago. Bill, your contributions to the program, the school, your alma mater, and the profession of pharmacy are immeasurable. Thank you very much. Dr. Marianne Ivey is the recipient of the award in 2007. Marianne? Here we are, yes. Mr. William Churchill received the award in 2009. Bill? And Dr. Linda Tyler received the award in 2015. Many of you residents were very fortunate to interact with them today at a terrific panel discussion and roundtable discussion, which has become a signature event of the Webb program. So thank you very much for facilitating those conversations with the residents from the local institutions. The legacy of John Webb can be expressed as his fundamental belief that care of patients should be our highest priority. The strongest statement a pharmacist can make is to maintain a clear commitment to this priority through a thoughtful and practical approach to patient care. With that said, and in recognition of these traditions of excellence, it is my pleasure to introduce our John W. Webb Lecture Award recipient for 2018, Patricia C. Keenley. Ms. Keenley is the Director of Accreditation and Medication Safety for Cardinal Health Innovation Delivery Solutions. She began her career in 1975 as a staff pharmacist at Mercy Hospital in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and has held several pharmacy leadership position roles at Mercy, Mercy Healthcare Partners, and Cardinal Health before assuming her current position. Ms. Keenley's dedication to advancing pharmacy practice is evident from her numerous positions of leadership within the United States Pharmacopeia Committees, Board of Pharmaceutical Specialty Councils, and the Joint Commission. She is a prolific writer, author, editor, and presenter, and an active member with local, state, and national pharmacy organizations. She has been recognized throughout her career for her contributions to pharmacy practice, being named a Fellow of ASHP, recipient of the ASHP Distinguished Leadership Award, and Pennsylvania Society of Health System Pharmacists Pharmacist of the Year Award. Webb lecturers are known to be contemplative managers, and we invite them to reflect deeply on a topic of their choosing, to leave us and the profession with a stronger vision for leadership. It is now time for Ms. Keenly to share her contemplation with us. Patty?
Well, thank you very much. I truly appreciate this. I'm so honored to receive this award. I really feel humbled by the company of all those trailblazing pharmacists who have been here before me, and especially Bill and Marianne and Bill and Linda. Thanks again. I've been extremely fortunate to work with two wonderful groups of folks, pharmacists, technicians, and support personnel. As was just mentioned, I began my career at Mercy Hospital in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and became the regional director of pharmacy for Mercy Health Partners, including Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and Nanticoke. Mercy had an incredibly forward-looking facility, despite being relatively poorly funded from an organizational standpoint. We had an IV additive service in 1974, were computerized by 1979, and had unit-based pharmacists in 1980. The timing was so interesting because it was just when pharmacy was emerging, hospital pharmacy anyway, emerging from the basement. And it was coincident with the time that medical staffs and other practitioners were starting to be trained in their training programs with pharmacists as part of that team. So it was sort of everything aligned. All the planets were there correctly and really pushed us forward to making sure that patients were the forefront of what we did, and everything clicked from then. It was clear that we were all on the same team. It was a crucible of eager pharmacy personnel and emerging medical practices that made that happen. And for the past 20 years, I've worked with my colleagues at Cardinal Health in Houston, where there's a phenomenal group of both clinically oriented and operationally oriented self-starters. Everybody's a leader who keeps the patient in the forefront of what they're doing. I still think of myself as a 25-plus year director of pharmacy. It's just that I can incorporate other administrative issues as I see practices differ throughout the country. I see something different every week, so it's a great job for someone who has that opportunity to go out and see that. One week I might be in an academic medical center, the next week I might be in a critical access hospital, and I see everything in between as well. Well, we all have one or maybe a few key elements of pharmacy practice that drives us. And for me, it's been medication safety, and particularly evolving into compounding safety and hazardous drugs in particular. But whatever we choose to concentrate on requires a solid foundation of clinical and operational pharmacy services. We need to remain grounded in our core principles: how medications work, how they get to patients, how patients use them, and how other clinicians interact with us and with all of our patients as well. It requires a broad focus of how patients, colleagues, technology, innovation, and science all mesh. And in any case, it requires an ability for us to juggle our foundation of pharmacy practice with emerging clinical skills and knowledge. It requires being nimble. Many of you who are in practice, and all of you are involved and perhaps fully responsible for an area in which you were never formally educated. If not now, you will be. Leadership skills are needed to successfully orchestrate and incorporate those activities into practice. What we learn and how we learn is enforced by our experience, and it prepares us for leadership. Leadership is purposeful and distinctive. Its goal is to guide others to success. It's not about us. It's about making others better and more responsive to the needs at hand. And in that case, it's clearly our patients. The role of a pharmacy leader, director, manager, whatever the title is to balance the resources we have while stretching the abilities of those who work with us. Much of what molds us as leaders starts with the attitude we see in our mentors, their management style, their approach to daily routine, and how they solve problems. One key element, and it's a well-known one, for early leadership development is to latch on to a leader. I used to joke that I kept sitting at the same table that John Gans was at the head of in college, in the Pennsylvania Society, at ASHP. And then it struck me how much influence he and his colleagues had on me. They were always there to point me in the right direction, and just as importantly, had the guts to tell me to concentrate on other things and lead me someplace else. We aren't born as leaders. We need that guidance to set our sights. It's not just those in academia who can prepare us to enter practice. It's the consistent message we need to hear from residency directors, from preceptors, and from other practitioners who are in this with us. The influence of staff pharmacists and techs, and upon students in particular, can't be overlooked, as those emerging practitioners see the work ethic in your departments. Reward those who precept students. You'll reap the benefits of developing their management and leadership skills. Stay nimble. Find those people you want to emulate. Find a mentor or two who can take the time to lead you in the direction you want to head. Sometimes these mentors won't be obvious or famous in pharmacy circles, or even someone who you want to mimic in your personal approach. I want to make sure that I get my right slide up here. I'll go here. I find it fascinating that my first pharmacy boss was one of the first elected officials of ASHP. Geraldine Stockert, that's the lady in the white there, was director of pharmacy at Monmouth Medical Center in Long Branch, New Jersey, and served as ASHP's very first vice president. She was light years ahead of most others in community hospital practice and gently guided staff, seasoned staff, students, new practitioners in the world of hospital pharmacy. I look back when we just take things for granted now. We were the first computerized hospital in the country, and this was in the late 60s. We even were on Walter Cronkite's The 20th Century, some of you may remember that program, because it was such an unusual thing and just what they felt was an emerging practice that computers were going to be used in hospitals. And how we did that in the pharmacy, very rudimentary at the time, of course, has really played out in the technology needs that we see all the time. Well, when I was elected to ASHP board, Ms. Stockert, and I always called her Ms. Stockert, never her first name, wrote me a note. One small communication from you to someone who you see attain a goal will be remembered. It's the professional way of paying it forward. It's one small step you as a leader can do that will be remembered by those up that leadership ladder. As a new pharmacy administrator, I remember listening to Lou Wakefield, who at that point was director of pharmacy at St. Joseph Hospital in Reading, Pennsylvania, and recipient of the Pennsylvania Pharmacist of the Year Award. His message, his proudest achievement, was the number of directors of pharmacy who had started at his hospital and then gone on to other health systems. Times have changed. It's not the director role alone who can make that difference. Clinical managers, lead technicians, staff members improve patient care all the time in their own unique way. They're all leaders who positively impact pharmacy practice. You may want to shelter those who have exceptional talent and keep them to yourself, but don't stop them from attaining their own goals. Sometimes you lose good people to other organizations, but it makes our profession stronger all around. Staying nimble allows us to fill those vacated spots with rising stars, such as yourself. I often think of words that one of my professors told us. I'm sure it was Dean Linwood Tice, sort of a curmudgeon kind of guy. He was the dean at the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy and Science. The tone of the message sounds just like his approach. Your professional organizational dues are the rent you pay for taking up space in this profession. Harsh way of saying that? Sure, but think of the backstory. We all need support, and we can't do it alone. Organizations like ASHP seek our participation, ask our opinions, and develop policy statements and practice guidance that we depend on when they're used to promote practice ideals to regulators, other professional organizations, and to our patients. It takes time and effort to participate, but every encounter makes our profession stronger. I can remember when Sylvester Kempinski, who was the Wilkes-Barre VA chief of pharmacy, called me and said, "Patricia, we're going to put you on the slate of office for our local society." I don't know that I really had a choice after that, right? When one of your colleagues taps you and says, "We'd like you to run for a seat on our board," or "Would like to appoint you to a committee," say yes if you can. Stay nimble. Stick your toe in the ocean of pharmacy, and it's going to lead you far. In addition to strong bench staff, the bench strength, and pharmacy services that support your health system, pharmacy and administrators need support from others close to pharmacy services. I've often talked about needing 4 best friends at the hospital: the nurse administrator, the risk manager, the infection control practitioner, and that guy in information technology who can really get you the reports that you need. Nursing is a given. As much as we strive to be on the patient care team, nursing is at the bedside of every patient every day. One of my proudest possessions from Mercy Hospital is a nurse's cap. I asked a friend if she would part with it. It hung in my office as a constant reminder of the clinician who's the final check between what we do and what the patient receives. Does your staff know what happens during a medication pass, what really happens? Do the staff nurses know what it takes to prepare doses and synthesize and synchronize all of those clinical needs with the core processes that we have of dispensing meds to every patient? A couple of hours of orientation for every nurse, pharmacist, and pharmacy technician in each other's location brings an awareness of how we all fit in the picture. Consider it in your onboarding of new personnel and encourage other departments to do the same. It keeps you nimble. You'll find that the risk manager is one of the biggest pharmacy cheerleaders in your organization. Those individuals know how our careful approach to shepherding the medication use system saves errors from occurring and provides the best possible care for our patients. One of the questions you can ask them is, what drug scares you the most? You'll get interesting responses from risk management because they've synthesized all of the things that can go wrong in a hospital. We can prevent that. You know what we do every day for error prevention, but if you can approach that from identifying some real pain points for those nursing administrators and infection control practitioners and risk management, it gains you their admiration because they recognize what pharmacy can do, and it also places them in a position that they're going to help you the first time that you have that opportunity to need it. Well, infection control practitioners have always been a key component in our safety wheel, but since the blossoming of sterile compounding practices provides an even greater link between how we operate these services and the safety of our patients. Keep them informed with things that go wrong, with things that go right, because they can serve another resource that we need when we really need to look at a broader perspective in our health systems. And the personnel in information technology who can make our lives easier goes without saying anymore. Administrative staff in most departments has been eliminated or at least restricted, so support from other areas to streamline our needs is critical. Earlier this afternoon when we were talking with the residents, we were talking about, and Bill Churchill mentioned it, what can you take away from what you do? What can somebody else do for you, or what doesn't need to be done at all? That's the same kind of system and support we need from those other administrative areas in our health system as well. And I know that I never would have been effective as I was without the unending support of Marie Peloso, who worked with me at Mercy in Wilkes-Barre and really kept our department clicking. So be nimble. Find a credibility issue. Find a passion. For me, it's medication safety. You can't understand the intricacies of that or most other pharmacy practices without walking around. You need to know what all the caregivers and all the clinicians are doing. All of us in administrative roles started in the trenches, and I feel very strongly that we need to at least be conversant in all of those areas to remain relevant and nimble. Walk through patient care and procedural areas as much as you can. You need to know the aspects of our function, from the core elements of distribution and sterile compound to the most sophisticated clinical activities that are occurring at your organization. You need to know the complexities of the system at your site. In addition to understand patient and staff needs, it gains knowledge from you, and it gives you visibility to those in power positions who are going to help you when needed. Learn from other practitioners. And I think the example, again, that we had earlier this afternoon when the residents from all these different health systems in this area were there, because I'm astonished at times when I realize that key health system pharmacists in the same city or town don't know each other, have never been to each other's organization. Have breakfast every couple of months with the directors in the area or the similar positions in which you're in. Meet at one of the hospitals so you can see what each other does. Bring along a staff member to mentor. Bring along another department manager so that they can see their counterpart in that organization as well. It makes you nimble. It shows what other people are doing. Don't be surprised when you're tapped to oversee another department or a service line. You can hope that it's a clinical area, but for me, it was materials management. Was this a passion of mine? Absolutely not, but I learned a lot. Use of the knowledge and skills that we have for appropriate medication control is directly transferable to supply chain management. Since central supply was part of that package, I also learned a lot about sterilization procedures, which has been invaluable when I deal with the sterile compounding issues. It also gives you opportunities, even for areas that you may not have that passion for or may not really want to participate in, but certainly have the skill set to be able to oversee. Maybe it's opportunities for not only pharmacists to promote to those areas, but also technicians in those. It becomes invaluable, and you will learn from every opportunity. You can't be a top-notch pharmacy executive without a solid department. It's a meld of dispensing and clinical functions. And to be credible, you need to get the appropriate medication to the patients in time. It's always going to feel like you're juggling a lot of priorities, but I hope, and I bet it is, that your colleagues think of you as having a very well-oiled department. There are always improvements to be made. Incorporate discussions with new staff into your routine and make that part of your routine, because their fresh eyes look at what you're doing because they've seen things in other organizations or can question, why do you do this? Or why don't you do it this way? It'll provide you a path for improvement. It keeps you nimble. I often think of a document that you may have seen called Lessons from the Geese. When you start to doubt the wisdom of teamwork, heed these lessons from an unlikely source, a flock of geese. As each bird flaps its wings, it creates an uplift for the bird following. By flying in a V formation, the whole flock adds 71% more to its flying range than if each bird flew alone. So what's the lesson? Teamwork and teammates who share a common direction and sense of community can get where they're going quicker and easier when they're working on shared power. It keeps you nimble. When the lead goose tires, directors of pharmacy, it rotates back into the formation and another goose flies at the point position. The lesson there is it pays to take turns doing the hard tasks and sharing the leader's role. It keeps you nimble. In formation, the geese from behind honk to encourage those in front to keep up. So that lesson is sometimes all of us need a little honking from behind to keep us going. And whenever a goose is sick or wounded, 2 geese drop out of that formation to help protect it. They stay with it until it flies again or dies. Stand by each other in times of trouble. We generally think of innovation and teamwork as clinical activities and medical advances, but we also need to make sure that operational issues that keep us going are going at a pace that matches that degree of what we're doing in clinical and other services and those advances. As different as our treatment strategies are over the last 10 years, some of our operational processes are stuck in 1990 or earlier. There's a lot of room for technology improvement to bring us to the point where most practitioners are working at the top of their license. Patient safety needs to be the driver in this. How technicians fit in this process is key. We need to improve the minimum skill set and knowledge and pay of all our personnel in our department, because they are what are going to keep, those technicians are what are going to keep our practice going and allow us to continue to rise in there. How many of our new practitioners and residents are interested in pharmacy administration? Anybody want to say they are? It's gratifying to see an increase in interest, and we need to develop new pathways to ensure our bench strength is always there. Look at the sterile compounding situation. Those practitioners of my age either learned from the masters or we bumbled through it ourselves without a map and made things work. Our error was not passing on that information to others. There was a whole element of knowledge that was missed there. We have a generation of pharmacist gap in developing and improving that practice, which fortunately is changing now. I don't think we would be in this sterile compounding situation if we had guided new practitioners and identified what we needed to do to keep patients safe and recognize and improve those practices. Fortunately, this has opened up a new pathway for administrative success, but the cost has been in harm to patients. We need to continue to replace that and move along with the technology and other safety systems that will support it. We need to know how we fit in the big picture. So I have 3 book suggestions for you. They're all nonfiction, to guide you on a journey that I think weaves pure science with human interest in what we do. First is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. At some point in your training, I bet you heard about HeLa cells. HeLa is Henrietta Lacks, a poor African-American woman farmer whose cells were taken without her knowledge in 1951. The cell cultures that were developed have become one of medicine's most valuable tools, but the process and resulting improvements in therapy were never properly explained to her or to her family. How many times do we hear our own patients misinterpret the complexities of what's presented to them and what happens to them during encounters? The bedrock of what we do needs to be promoting an ethical approach to allow discoveries to bloom. When this occurred in 1951, no one faced these possibilities. Ethics, as we know it now in medicine, was unknown at that point. This situation and other unfortunate situations quite like it have brought us to the point where human experiments aren't conducted without appropriate consent. How does this keep us nimble? It weaves ethical issues, patient education, advancing medical practices. All of those are in our realm. Participate in your institutional review board, your ethics committee, quality activities, or better yet, appoint one of your staff to do that and mentor them through that process. Second is flu. We know so much about infectious diseases, but so little. 100 years ago was the height of the worldwide influenza epidemic, which killed 50 million people in a few months. 50 million people. It was 3% of the world's population was decimated by influenza 100 years ago. Somewhere between, numbers aren't so good, 100,000 and 195,000 Americans died in October 1918, 100 years ago this month, from influenza. The second wave of this pandemic, and this October date was the second wave of the pandemic, it had started in the spring, began right around here at Camp Devens in the Boston area as well. The estimation is that 45,000 Massachusetts residents succumbed to influenza during that season. Can you imagine if something like that happened now and how we would approach it? The US life expectancy fell by 12 years in a single year between 1918 and 1919 solely because of that pandemic. Look at the list of new agents that the FDA approves every year. Most of them are biologics. Many are intended to treat a single condition. We still struggle with curing bacterial and viral diseases, and you know the resistance patterns in your own organizations are frightening. All of us in health system practice know the mystery that often surrounds treatment of patients. What's going to work best? Why? How can effective protocols be developed to best treat our vulnerable patients? That balance of science and safety shines in this story, and it isn't much different from what occurs today in our attempt to cure diseases. So how does this keep us nimble? We know a lot more about viruses than we did 100 years ago, but there's still plenty of unsolved medical mysteries. Research, publish, work with interdisciplinary teams, and encourage and support those who you work with to do so as well. Third is Radium girls. In the early 1900s, an industry popped up that revolutionized watchmaking. Young women were hired for their precision to paint the luminescent dials of watches so these timepieces could be seen in the dark. With what? Radium. It was the wonder drug of 1915, marketed in tonic waters, included in cosmetic, and marketed as cures for all sorts of conditions. Thousands of workers were recklessly exposed to it, despite scientists and managers recognizing that there was clearly some risk that was going on. But it wasn't until side effects began to emerge among many workers that these patterns were realized. Well, how does this keep us nimble? I certainly see this as a telling story when we deal with hazardous drugs. We know that medical surveillance of these drugs and controlling and monitoring how we use them are essential. We know there are risks, and when we're aware of the protection to take, it's not only reasonable to take the most logical path, but we need to do it to maintain safe practices. So what's the key message in books about ethics and viral diseases and risk? Be nimble. Use our solid science education, management skills, integration in other medical activities, and grit to move practice forward. All three of these books are stark representations of science melded with personal stories. And isn't that what leadership is all about? In a professional leadership area, that's what we need to concentrate on. How can we guide others to make great discoveries while promoting safety for our patients? Leadership in pharmacy is a team sport. We need to evaluate our activities. We need to take appropriate action to make our profession better and stronger. We have the opportunity to enhance patient care through our integration into the evolving healthcare marketplace. Barriers and other problems will always be around, but creative thoughts and working with technology and grit will provide the best care for patients. We've reached a maturity that we know we can't do this all alone, and it's one that our nursing colleagues met 40 years ago, probably. They have done this for years. They're comfortable asking for help when they need it. Use consultants judiciously. Work with other professions. Present solutions to problems, and be nimble. I love this quote. Successful people aren't gifted. They just work hard, and then they succeed on purpose. So find a mentor who can guide you in the direction you want to go. You won't know what that direction is all the time, but you'll know in your gut if it's right for you. Be ready to take on additional responsibilities. You don't always need to say yes, even if you have an option, but no is likely to set you back a few steps on that path. Recognize the balance that you need, but take some chances in there. Learn what others are doing. ASHP, pharmacy, other medical publications, current events. One idea can spark a whole new path. I hope to see every one of you publish, present, and lead practice. Travel. Maybe it's local, maybe it's international, maybe it's travel through reading. It's not just journals, today's internet news, or whatever you catch on TV in the morning. Exchange visits with other health systems and other pharmacies. Go visit a pharmacy that you've never seen. Nuclear, home care, specialty. Read for pleasure, but also read for substance. Be active in pharmacy organizations. I would never be in this spot if it wasn't for ASHP and for coming up through that state society rank of learning from other mentors and being guided in the right potential. Tap one other person. Maybe it's someone right here in this room, or maybe it's someone on your staff back in your shop. You can double our involvement or influence if every one of us gets one more person involved. Partner in health system activities, golf tournaments, auxiliary activities, fundraising. Not only does that do good for patients, but it also puts you in a position to meet people who can help you and guide you through what you need to do in your health system. Be there for folks who need you. Realize that our pharmacy license isn't a privilege, it's a responsibility. Part of the oath of the pharmacist says, I'll consider the welfare of humanity and the relief of suffering my primary concern. I will embrace and advocate changes that improve patient care. So I challenge you all to be nimble. I thank you truly for this great honor, and let's go make our profession even stronger. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patty, for your entire career, all that you've done, putting patients at the center of all the work that you do, and a wonderful and inspiring message about how all of us at any level of our career can move forward. It's an honor to have you here. We're thrilled to welcome you to the group of Webb lecture recipients, and we have a small gift for you here. It's a big gift. And let's see if we can open this together. This is always the challenge.
Okay, why don't we put it on here?
See what we can
so
do
don't
here.
hear anything, bad. It's not gonna work, is it?
I asked for scissors this year. Remember last year, it took about 10 minutes for 3 people to get the gift open.
Yeah, we're gonna do this.
Oh, here we go. Scissors.
Hey, there they are. It's
Cut
like
away.
cutting the ribbon there, right? They're dull scissors. We need scissors that work.
You're being very nimble here. All right, here we go. This is a little bit of Boston tradition. You can open it from here. This is something that Bill Gouveia started some 34 years ago to recognize one of our local historians, historical figures.
That's it. There we go.
There we go.
Wow. Wow. Oh, isn't that lovely?
This is a Revere Bowl, and it should be inscribed.
It is.
And with glasses that I've lost here on the podium, I can read it for all of you. It reads, Patricia Clancy Keenley, RPH, MPA, FASHP, 34th Annual John W. Webb Lecture, Northeastern University, October 29th, 2018.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
That's lovely. Thank you. I'll grab that in a minute.
As we conclude tonight's program, would you please join me in thanking Karen Stanley and Erica Antman for attending to the details of today's program. I know they're out there someplace. Join me in thanking them. Also, I'd like to thank our generous co-sponsors, Griffolds USC, represented today by Juan Miguel Cana Lopez and Frank Parapat. Are you here? I think, yes. Yes, thank you very much, and Griffolds' ongoing support of this program. And again, to MSHP for their ongoing support. And to all who have contributed to this program in time and gifts to support keeping the program going in perpetuity, which we are now able to do. So thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for attending tonight. Have a wonderful evening and a safe journey home.